I'm doing fine. So leave me alone, so leave me alone, so leave me alone. I'm doing fine. So leave me alone, so leave me alone, so leave me alone. I'm doing fine. So leave me alone, so leave me alone, so leave me alone. I'm doing fine. So leave me alone, so leave me alone, so leave me alone, leave me alone.
Good evening to you, Terry Holloman. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Mr. Burns. How are you?
It's too long when we go a week without doing one of these.
I know, right?
I end up just talking to people like I'm talking to you, and they're like, "What are you doing? Why are you zooming me? This isn't our relationship."
Yeah, it's too far, but it's all good. We're here now. It's Tuesday, and we're good to go, man.
Hey, I don't know if you kept on top of any of the royal family drama. Usually, that's like it's really, really dull to me until someone storms off of set of England's version of Good Morning America. And honestly, the only time I've ever seen that show, because I don't obviously live in England, is when Piers Morgan gets upset and Media puts a clip of that up on their site. And if you don't know who Piers Morgan is, I think he was an America's Got Talent judge. I'm just trying to think of instances of American TV you might know him from. I think he was a Celebrity Apprentice contestant and then tried to fill Larry King's role as on that show on CNN, and that didn't last very long.
Didn't pan out very well. Yeah.
So you'd know his face. So he's their curmudgeonly commenter on Good Morning Britain or whatever it's called, and I guess Meghan Markle and Prince Harry did an interview with Oprah Winfrey on Sunday. Now, I didn't watch the interview in its entirety because with those kind of interviews, you don't need to. Someone is going to post the interesting clips, and instead of devoting 60 minutes of your life, you can devote 7 and see all the juicy stuff.
It wasn't 60 minutes either. It was 120 minutes.
Oh, it was a 2-hour interview.
It was a 2-hour interview. And I sat through all 2 hours of it.
Why? Before we get to it, did you do that because you like the royal family, or did you do that because long form or any sort of Oprah interviews are, few and far between at this point?
Well, first and foremost, I did it because I have a wife. That is the number one reason. And she was in control of the remote that day.
Yeah.
And I have 3 daughters. And so, I was reluctant to watch it because, I'm not going to say I was reluctant to watch it. I'll just say it wasn't on my schedule to watch. And I was hearing this commotion like, oh, there's 10 minutes until the interview comes on, the Oprah and the I was like, who cares? They're over there. Who cares? Nobody cares about that. And she's like, are you kidding me? This is the royal family. She's the first, woman of African American descent to be part of the royal family. This is, a princess and all the good stuff that goes along with it. I'm like, okay, I'm watching, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I know the names. I know the players of the royal family. Queen Elizabeth has been around. Queen Elizabeth has been old longer than like any other old person. Anthony Hopkins maybe being like somewhat of a second.
Yeah.
And then Larry King before that, oddly enough. And I've never really understood the abject fascination. Like Princess Di and her death was a big moment. She died actually the day I started college. And people, I remember people being really, really upset. And before I mocked them, I was like, oh yeah, I died the day Kurt Cobain killed himself. So I'm not gonna get, high and mighty about people who form this weird emotional attachment to icons like that. But I've never understood the people's, over here especially, the people's fascination with the weddings, with the babies, with the nicknames, with anything that the royal family has to do, because they are and have been forever purely figureheads and not our figureheads at all. Like this endless fascination. And yet they're as globally famous as anybody.
Well, absolutely. And
it's rare Oprah can sit down and be like, yeah, I'm the 3rd most famous person here.
Kinda. She's up there.
She's up there. It's close. Yeah, you're right.
The thing about it is, who else in the entire world is going to get that interview with those 2 people and really basically at this point shut the royal family down? There's not another person on the planet that's going to get that interview and is going to have that kind of pull and to kind of have that power to what we're experiencing right now with the royal family.
I can't think of anybody else.
There's no one. There's nobody. Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Maybe
if they were talking about trans issues.
Yeah,
that's what seems that's what fuels Rogan.
But
they made some major revelations. You know, that you said they blew up the royal family, and I think maybe for the first time, England might be saying, and this is based on just the conversations now, because I'm sort of just fascinated to the reaction, because they've always just been like super into every not even pertinent detail of these people's lives. And it's obviously brings in massive tourism dollars. And it's one of the few remaining things coming out of England other than your odd sitcom, because they don't produce really good music anymore and haven't for like 30 years. But, you know, everybody still follows the royal family. So England's always been kind of behind it. And now the chatter I'm sort of hearing now for the first time is like, maybe we should reevaluate this whole fake monarchy thing that we have in this country. Maybe this is silly, and all it's doing, as Meghan Markle pointed out, is shedding the sort of the cruelty, the light of cruelty of people on these public figures, specifically Meghan, who I remember her only after she got famous for being is she a princess now?
She's not even a princess.
She's not even a British member of the royal family. She has like 4 lines in Horrible Bosses. Yeah. Every time I see that movie now, I'm like, oh my God, there's Meghan Markle. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Piers Morgan, getting back to him, has been relentless on his attacks of her behavior. And I'm not familiar with how she shamed the royal family. And clearly there is some sort of, there's something beyond a coincidence here that she happens to be the first Black member of the royal family. And her getting all the sorts of criticisms and hate that other people, for the most part, Princess Di got some of it, but for the most part were able to avoid. And now it's like kind of it's starting a new, I find somewhat fascinating conversation about like, all right, I think a lot of the institutions that we decide now to bring down are just sort of stupid and irrelevant. Like, you can lecture me about Dr. Seuss all day, whatever. Do it, don't do it. I'm 41. I ain't reading it.
Right.
But like the royal family, I feel like that's kind of an interesting one. Like, what is really the point of this shit anymore, other than just generating gossip?
Yeah, well, I think so. To go back to what I think was the original draw of the royal family for most people around the world, particularly American people who have, I thought, our ultimate goal when we became this country, this independent nation, is that we wanted to break free of the monarchy. We had we did not want to be a part of that system anymore.
No. So King George.
Yeah, we fought. People died, bled, and it was a big thing. Fast forward to where we are now, I think there has just been this. We've had so many people that create this image of royalty, and the idea of having a prince and a princess has been just such a big fable for. That's what we were inundated with as kids, right? About, young girls wanting to be the princess and finding their Prince Charming. And that's what all of our books were. That's what all of the movies and cartoons was all about, the prince and the princess and the king. And, all these great things that came along, and the wealth and the riches and the glass slipper and all that good stuff, right? So I think we kind of fantasize about royalty. And this is the last, like, the real life monarchs that we associate with, even though of course there's king. Nobody ever cares about. When's the last time you heard anybody care about the king of Saudi Arabia and the prince and the princesses and all that stuff, right?
I mean, only when they commit atrocities,
and only when they murder people or murder American journalists.
Yeah,
and then they're whatever. But I just think that's
but not in the same sense. Like there are prince and princesses in all sorts of countries. But it seems like the only ones that are globally romanticized are the ones coming out of the UK. Like, that's it. No one ever is like, oh, if I could just meet. And there's no like Prince of Saudi Arabia tropes when it comes to common fiction, or little boys and girls fantasies.
No, I think again, I think that's in America there because there is a direct link to Americans and Europe and the UK, and a lot of people see themselves in those shoes because you actually visualize it, and you say, "Oh, that guy." And again, I was going to bring this up. This is a big difference between, I think, when we separate it by race in this country. I think you look at African Americans and like myself. Like, we could care less. We could have cared less about the monarchy or the Prince of England and the King of England. We thought Princess Diana was cool, because she was a philanthropist. She cared about people. She did a lot of things out in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, I mean, nobody cared about the Queen of England. Nobody cared about any of that until we found Meghan Markle was going to be married into that family. Then we were like, holy shit. They're about to put a black lady, for all intents and purposes, into the royal family. And we're like, this can't be real. They can't let this happen. And sure enough, they let the cat out of the bag with Oprah a couple nights ago, and they don't want it to happen. So that's the deal.
Now, there was something odd about hearing their complaints. Because they're like, they want to return to their normal life. And then I saw their house is worth $14.5 million.
Yeah.
Like it is like, I get like being under constant scrutiny, but like this sort of the one thing where I was totally with them. I'm like, yeah, blow this all up. I think it'd be hilarious.
Right.
And Queen Elizabeth's husband has ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Like, there's all sorts of bad stuff going on. Princess Charles is the thing that always bugged me about Princess Charles is that Prince Charles, he's super ugly. Like, he's British, British ugly. Yeah.
He always has been.
It's like, nah, you know what? You keep having kids until you got a pretty one. Because, William and Harry they're clearly Diana's kids. Like, they're good looking. Yeah. William's letting himself go bald, which to me is nearly inexcusable. Because there should be no bald prince.
No. Or just let it go or get a toupee or something, man. That's
you have every resource. I mean, they would breed and then slaughter a man with a perfect head of hair just to transplant it to your royal skull. So make that happen.
Or just breed him and leave him in a room and grow his locks and cut him from like every 3 months and add to it. Exactly. That's your sole purpose in life. They're hair bearer for the prince.
Male pattern baldness should be no part of a prince's life. But it's like, yeah, bring the whole thing down, except like, they are going to still be
But here's the thing about, so again, as someone who watched the entire 2 hours of the interview, this is the part that I don't think a lot of people take into consideration when they're talking about this. So you talk about they have this $15 million estate and they're not hurting for money. Of course, I mean, I think you think about even though they were cut off, I'm sure there's some funds somewhere. I know that Princess Diana knew what the deal was, and her children were set up financially when she passed away. That being said, there's another level to this entire thing that we need to consider. Even though they're wealthy, they are still, even though they've been ostracized, royalty. They are still royalty. And at the end of the day, there are people out there who would take a shot at someone just because they're royalty. Like, how many people would want to assassinate someone of royal blood? Like, just the cuckoo's people out there. There are cuckoo people out there. Okay, let's just talking about the assassination part of it. That's one part of it. Think about the zealots, the crazy fans, the people who just want to run up and touch them or touch their baby or do something like that. They need to have some type of security, some type of secured living situation 24/7. Now more so than ever, because now not only do you have crazy people who like want to touch the prince or do something to the prince or harm the prince, Now they've been completely ostracized and talked bad about the royal family and, you know, the machine that is the royal family and the business that is the royal family. There's a lot of people who are pretty angry at them right now. So how do you go about that?
Aren't they the kind of like the stiff upper lip, you know, old timey aristocratic wealthy types? Like they're not, I can't imagine there's anybody who, like some Liverpoolian lunatic football fan who's like going to try to take it, who's really upset with them. Like that's the weird thing about it too, is that England has gone through some like during the Thatcher era and also in the late 70s as well. I'll show my ignorance, and I had no idea who the prime minister was at that time. But they went through incredible depressions, where that's where punk rock kind of comes from. Like, you know what? There's no future for you. I mean, that's a famous Sex Pistols line, and yet, like the Queen sustained, the royal family sustained, and I don't know if it's because. It was a nice distraction, but you would have think if there had been anger directed in a manner of violence at the royal family, it would have been during one of those eras. Whereas now, England's a little more stable.
They are a little bit more stable, a little bit less aggressive than they are here in America. But how many things happened over those years that we have no idea about?
Yeah,
I mean how many things were thwarted? How many things were stopped? How many things were like, some people were like, yeah, let's attack the Queen. Nah, you see those guards over there? They're there all the time. We're not going to make it. So
yeah,
you don't know. Obviously, there's a need for security because that was something that came out during the interview, that they were denied security. And that was the big issue for Harry and for Meghan. And just think about it. You're the only one of the royal family that does not get security, and you've had security for your entire life. Like, and everybody through your lineage has had security since forever.
Right.
And now they're saying, hey, you guys,
on your own.
Luck. And and I'm not just talking about, like, again, not just people in England or in the United Kingdom who would be angry at the prince and his new bride, but just even anybody. Like, think of any fundamentalist group, some kind of Middle Eastern terrorist group, whoever might be that might want to, send a message to the world. And I've killed the prince and his wife. And
I feel like that would be a really confusing message, though. Like, all right, especially as Americans. I mean, what are you trying to tell us? Like,
I mean, it's the same thing, but somebody assassinated John Lennon. What are they trying to tell us? This because some crazy guy said that the girl from Hannibal,
yeah,
what's her Jodie Foster told him to kill.
Yeah, it's Jodie Foster's fault. But fortunately, she learned her lesson.
But I'm saying there are people like that out there. I mean, it doesn't have to be a reason why.
True.
But you are a public figure that is of royal blood, and somebody would maybe want to kill you. And
without a doubt, they're going to need lifetime security.
But they've been denied that.
Yeah, but they can afford their own. They're just not going to have royal family appointed security. Yeah. They're going to be able to put together quite enough. Like, I've worked with far lesser celebrities that had some rather big dudes around them around the clock. They can afford that stuff. Yeah,
but so what do you do that? So now again, devil's advocate here. How much does that? Because I have no idea how much around the clock security 365 days is would cost someone. And these people are no longer attached to that pipeline of royal money. How long does that last? And does it last for as long as my kid's alive? My kid is just an infant now, and I'm about to have another one. Will my kids have that same ability to have security?
Well, I guess then it becomes, well, how there was no pressure for them to generate revenue as a member of the royal family. Right. You simply exist.
Right.
Now they have to figure out how to make their own money. Meghan Markle is not going to be an actress ever again, not in any meaningful way. I mean, she was never a lister. I don't even know what she was in a USA Network show,
Right.
but I can't remember which one.
But
So how do they make money of themselves? I'm sure either one of them could fetch a rather large book deal. I mean, they could join this very crowded arena of podcasting if they wished. And
be royal rich?
Probably
security
not.
around the clock rich?
Could you imagine though, like if you were, I'm just trying to think of like some of the sponsors that make the rounds on podcasts, like Warby Parker glasses. Normally they pay like $100 a spot, right? If you're on the royal family, like, because that would be a global podcast. We're talking about downloads in the tens, if not hundreds of millions. Yeah. Those spots could run for God knows what they would talk about. I mean, I don't know if you strip all the circumstance around them, which makes them inherently interesting. And obviously what they were talking about last night was very interesting, but they were being interviewed by Oprah, and it's hard not to be interesting. I mean, she's Tom Cruise jumping on the couch and all that. Right. She makes dull people fascinating.
Yes.
But could they do an hour a week? Like, I don't know. These clips are the most I've ever heard Harry talk. And these clips are beyond the brief moments I've seen Meghan Markle in movies I've ever heard her talk. So I don't know what skills or what they could bring to the world, but they have a hot story. And at the very least, they could do some sort of lecture circuit or I think that once you're in something as rare as the royal family, the potential for income is just like, okay, where do I want to draw it from?
First of all, what's the longevity of that, for one? And for two, like, I mean, if you are Harry and you are technically a prince, like, how far do you go with that? Like, do you see yourself like 5 years down the road, like doing erectile dysfunction ads, like more princely ports don't rise like they used to? Like, I don't know. I mean,
well, I feel like the seventh cast member of a Star Trek spinoff still does Comic-Cons 50 years later. So there's there will always be a clamoring for it.
And but I'm not saying they're ever going to be broke, but you don't go from. Like, I don't know if we
maybe they should start doing Cameo.
A message from the prince. I don't think we really conceptualize what it. I mean, how do you conceptualize the life of a prince or life of royalty?
We can't. We're not supposed to. That's the whole point of this country.
Yeah,
we're not supposed to understand this.
So a couple things I was thinking about. Like, so think about that. Like, type of situation would you have to be in, or what kind of mind frame you would have to be in, or what kind of man would you be to renounce your royalty, to renounce everything that you've ever known, the thing that people would kill for and die for, to renounce it and walk away from it forever?
I mean, what should happen is they should pair up with Lin-Manuel Miranda. This should be the next musical. I mean, he specializes in this stuff. He had that's what everybody in the whole play did, was renounce their relationship with the royalty, with the monarchy. Yeah, they right now they're as hot as a couple as you could possibly imagine. I mean, that interview was massive, and they're extremely famous, and fame wanes without a doubt. But God, Princess Di is still crazy, instantly recognizable. I mean, Princess Di, immediately you picture her face. I think almost no matter what age group you are.
What she did, though, like, you got to think about it. And it's crazy because as someone, again, I was never really enthralled by the royal family or anything of that nature. But I can vividly remember where I was, what I was doing as a child, like in kindergarten, when the Princess Di and Charles' wedding was, and it was like I was awake at like 1 in the morning for some reason watching.
Yeah, that's when they would air.
Yeah, and so I remember that vividly, and it was like Diane was this like she was like this larger than life, most beautiful, like the picture perfect storybook princess, like with the blonde hair and the long gown. And so that was like our introduction to her as a princess. And from there, it just continued to grow, like as we saw her, and again, like I talked about her philanthropy, the way that she worked with different charities around the world, like going to Africa, dealing with people with AIDS, and so all these humanitarian things that she did. She became larger than life, and it was a body of work that lasted from like 1980
to 97,
until
she died.
Till she died. And so that was a heavy body of work. Those are some heavy shoes to fill for anybody. Yeah.
Well, let's also think about the other person now who is cut off, who might have a tougher time going forward. Piers Morgan, who I love this because he's one of those. I'm not going to try a British accent. Liberals are such snowflakes. Kids are such snowflakes. Blah blah blah. All this. And then he gets criticized after making some what were called diabolical remarks, which English morning TV is way more high-minded than our morning shows. Our shit is shit. Their stuff is actually kind of good. So I've learned over the past 48 hours. So some guy named Alex Beresford, who I'm guessing is, I feel like everybody there, it's like Piers Morgan and then someone somehow who played soccer. That's it, right? That's everybody over there. And so he goes off on Meghan Markle, who he's clearly hated for a long time, whatever his reasons are. Alex Beresford doesn't even go on a rant, just like takes him down.
Yeah.
And Piers Morgan storms off the set and quits like a goddamn baby. Like, you've been confronted with your own words.
Yeah.
There was no name calling back from Alex. I thought it was a tremendous 2-minute thing. I guess Piers and Meghan Markle used to have some sort of personal relationship. And then for whatever reason, probably because she realized, why would I still need to talk to England's Tucker Carlson? Right. Why do I need to do that? I don't. I'm in the royal family now. Cut him off, which perturbed him. And since then has been an incredibly vocal critic, gets called out for it. And almost in tears, I don't mean like tears,
mumbling,
just overwhelmed. Like, when you were like a kid and you were just really upset and you did like that dead arm run. You know what I mean? Like, you're just like, yeah. That's how he stormed off the set like a baby. And here's
mumbling as he was going, I'm not gonna stay with this. I can't handle this. Yeah. They're like, Piers, come back.
I know. It's clear that this was like kind of his role on the show, but if you're gonna be a flamethrower, you got to deal with people pushing back on it. That was one of the most childish, embarrassing exits I've ever seen anyone make in media, especially for someone who thinks that this younger generation is just so full of just crybabies, participation trophy, all that nonsense. There he goes, storming off set. I'd quit if you're going to be mean to me.
Here's the thing. A couple of questions for you before we get out of here. So first and foremost, so that he's made a living off of being this character or being this person, whether it's real or accentuated or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
He's made his bread doing this. Do you think he had something else lined up? Like, what? Yeah. You think he had to have? Because why would you just storm out? Like, I quit. Like, I give this all up just because this guy over here said some things about me that I didn't like. Like and it wasn't like it wasn't a personal attack. It wasn't like it got to him when he said, you and Meghan had a relationship and she cut it off for whatever reason. I don't know why, and I'm not gonna assume why, but it seems like you've been attacking her ever since then. It seemed like a relatively simple thing. Like,
it was insanely British. It was a very British takedown.
Yeah.
Like polite, well worded.
Very well worded.
It was.
And Piers he couldn't take it. So I'm thinking like maybe he has something else lined up. He's going to the new Trump network or something. I don't know. He got something lined up. Nobody quits a job like that unless you got something else ready to go.
We're now 29 minutes and 15 seconds into the very first conversation that I've ever had about the royal family. And I have to say, Terry, I dig it. Maybe I'm going to get into it now.
It might be a thing, man.
Maybe it's kind of fun. Maybe I'll stay up for who's getting married next. Is anybody ready? Has anyone got some vows coming up?
Nobody's got anything coming up anytime soon. They're all babies.
All right, man. Well, we'll be back on Thursday.
Yes.
Good to talk to you. Thursday
Always.
night, 6 o'clock, patreon.com/BurnsNolla. Find this wherever podcasts